This is your lecture on parts of an academic paper. Conversation among strangers begins with an introduction, just as this class did, and just as the assignments in this class begin with an explanation of the subject of each, just as each module contains written information that guides you into the discussion, your papers must contain an introduction. An introduction will be how you will commence every paper you write. The first paragraph of a paper is called the introductory paragraph. The first paragraph has parts. The first part is called the hook. The hook sentence does figuratively what an actual hook does. It catches. The hook catches the interest of the reader. In many papers, the hook might be a question pertaining to the subject of the paper, the subject of the research. Other hooks might take a narrative approach, similar to the opening of a story or an anecdote. The opening sentence of your paper is one of the few overt places you are allowed to be creative in an academic work. Another might be the title. The second part of your introductory paragraph is called the plan. The second sentence in an argument is traditionally the plan sentence. In this sentence, you might describe for your audience the things you will show, the sources you will rely on, or it may even be so detailed as to list the steps you will go through to prove your thesis. Although delineating your plan, as a lawyer might delineate to a jury, may not be a strategy you choose to employ. Generally, the second sentence or the second part of the first paragraph can also be either an extension of your hook or the beginning of your thesis, or both. Good writing transitions between thoughts. The last part of your introductory paragraph is called the thesis. A thesis is a claim. This claim is what you will attempt to prove throughout your paper, providing multiple points of relevant evidence. These different elements of your argument will appeal in different ways to different aspects of your audience. In a very real way, you may think of your audience as a jury of your peers. They are meant to judge the merits of your argument. They are those who will decide if you have proven your claim, your thesis statement. And similarly, you may think of yourself as a lawyer for the prosecution or the defense. A thesis statement places your argument in a larger discussion, what Birkenstein and Graff refer to as the they say, I say template. Although you do not have a textbook for this course, you might do well to check out the book, They Say, I Say, The Moves That Matter in Academic Writing by Gerald Graff and Kathy Birkenstein. It is a fine text and a very short one, and studying it will only improve your writing. You will find a fine example of this they say, I say template in your reading of Letter from a Birmingham Jail by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It's in Module 5. To some extent, you should also be able to identify this template in all the readings. The manifestation of this template will sometimes be overt and other times be implied. The thesis is the most important part of your introductory paragraph and your paper, but your argument may suffer due to a failure to engage your audience with a hook or a failure to convince them with your words. I will state this fact many times over the course of this semester. A thesis is a claim that leads to a reasonable conclusion. Every paragraph after the introductory paragraph, with the exception of the concluding paragraph, is called a body paragraph. It will take multiple body paragraphs to prove your thesis. And body paragraphs have parts. The first part of the body paragraph is called the subject. The subject of a body paragraph indicates to the audience what the paragraph will address, an aspect of the argument. The subject of a body paragraph might begin with the they say, I say template. It might also be more than a single sentence, but can be no less. If a writer chooses to begin this paragraph with this template, she might choose to summarize an aspect or claim from someone else. For example, a famous person addressed this idea, and I agree. Some people say this, but I disagree. People have said this, and while I agree for the most part, I think of it in a different way. Again, these paragraphs might be more than 3 sentences. The disparate parts of a body paragraph might be more than 1 sentence. Some subject sentences act as transitions from the last paragraph. The second part of a body paragraph is called the evidence. This part of a paragraph is, for some strange reason, dangerous for students, and I'm not certain why, as you are using somebody else's quoted words and work or ideas to support your argument. Evidence, in this case, usually quoted material from either a primary or a secondary source, must be prefaced or concluded with the words of the author. I'll provide examples below. You cannot just drop a quote in the middle of your paragraph. This behavior is sometimes called dangling a quotation, a drive-by, or a hit-and-run quotation. Don't do it. You must introduce the evidence. They Say, I Say has numerous templates for introducing quotations. These templates have been appended to the second module. After you properly introduce the evidence, you must explain the relevance. Here are some examples. Blank writes, and then the quote, and then the citation. According to blank, and then the quote, and then the citation. third part of a body paragraph is called the relevance. It is imperative that the author indicates to her audience the relevance of the evidence provided. You explain in this part of the paragraph why the evidence you provided matters, how it helps prove your thesis statement. Think of this part as a chance to remind your audience of your initial claim. A wise strategy when looking to close out a body paragraph is to use a transition sentence after you have established the relevance. Transition sentences are important in writing because they provide continuity to your thoughts. A brief mention of the subject of the next paragraph might do well here. We must always consider our audience. Linking the two paragraphs will help your audience remain engaged with the argument as they continue toward the concluding paragraph. The third part of a body paragraph, the last part of your paper is called the concluding paragraph. The concluding paragraph has parts. The first part of the concluding paragraph is where you will restate your thesis statement. Do not simply cut and paste the thesis statement. If you do that, you are doing this part wrong. If you do that, you will lose points. The first few sentences of your concluding paragraph must be a paraphrase of your initial claim, your thesis statement. It really is that simple. When I was a student and I needed to write a paper, I would write several versions of my thesis statement at the beginning of the work. The point of this strategy is that when you get to the end of your paper, if you have worked hard on it, as we all should, you are exhausted. I found that I was mentally drained at the end of a paper, and the thought of restating my thesis seemed a mundane and mind-numbing task. I didn't want to do it. After I figured that out, I started writing these different versions of my thesis at the outset of the work. And when I came to the end, I would just go back and pick the one I liked best to use as the first part of my concluding paragraph. The grades on my papers improved dramatically after that. The second part of the concluding paragraph demands the answer to the question, so what? You've just spent hours and hours of your life researching outside sources and crafting paragraphs and transitions and coming up with a really cool title. You've tried diligently to prove your claim, and you think you are successful. Now you must ask yourself, so what? Why is your claim important? Why is all of this important? The answer to this question might take more than a sentence or two. You may also use this space to create a summation of critical points. And it might contain a transition to the third part of your concluding paragraph. Who cares? You've just spent more than a sentence or two describing for your audience why your claim is important. Now you must elaborate on the who. Who is all this important to? Who might be affected if your claim is proven true? Why should anyone care about what you've just proven? You should remember this is your last chance to speak, so go out with a bang. And that's it for the writing portion of the paper. That's it. That's the framework. You'll then hit the enter key a number of times and begin a new page. You will title this page Works Cited, but we will talk about that in future modules.